93.77. I'm ahead of the curve here. I'm telling you the BTV before actually the team have managed to get it. 93.77. This is what we've got. The first deficit in 8 months. Exports, splendid performance, up 9%. The number that drew my eye line this morning was exports to China, its largest trading partner, 30.8% from a year earlier. So a deficit for the first time in 8 months. I mean, it really is firing on all cylinders, to grab a phrase from Bob Dudley, in terms of Japan Inc., isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's very encouraging. It's a good global picture. It's a good China picture.
Right.
And a general EM picture. Look, we've got synchronised growth, so no surprise that Japanese exports are performing well. That number to China is of particular interest. Interesting to see what it is. Japan's very strong in robotics, so a lot of people underestimate the Japan and Japanese equity market. It's circa 7 or 8% of the global market. But if you look, for example, at robotics, it's got a 30 to 35% share of the robotics market. So it's not just older, duller companies. There is a technology edge to Japan, and we're overweight. We like the market, and it happens to be one of the cheaper markets around.
Is it from a technology point of view that you like the market? The reason why I want to drill into that a little bit more is this is a view from above in terms of who owns the Japanese market. And in the recent dip, BTV 93.10, by the way, if you've got a terminal out there, this is a view. It was actually the retail investor in Japan that, in the hurly-burly, it was the domestic Japanese investor that added to their position. They own about 17% of the market, okay? Yeah. Foreign institutional investors, I was surprised by this, only own about 30% of Japan. It's moderately under-owned by global investors in a relative sense.
No, I think you're right, Manus, because so when we see global managers come our way here at Coutts, generally we see underweights in Japanese equities. It's often ignored. It's circa, I think it's 7 or 8% of global equities. So, you know, unless it's performing really strongly as a market, then a lot of global managers can almost ignore it and underweight it.
And in part, that's to do with the currency, because obviously you've got Kuroda well, we're going down the road of Kuroda reappointed, etc., and they are trying to weaken the yen. If you take those two facets, does that add a little bit more alpha to Japan this year?
So the Japanese equity market traditionally has been correlated with a weaker yen, you're right. I mean, a lot of stock investors don't hedge their yen out, or don't hedge currencies out in general. They're just global equity investors. For us, we take a neutral view on yen, both dollar yen, sterling yen and euro yen. So we're overweight Japanese equities, but we hedge the excess yen exposure just because we don't know. It's a tough one because it's interesting to see this move in the yen today. It's probably more to do with risk on. It's a rare risk-on morning for me at Bloomberg TV. Normally, it's always risk-off when I arrive here. So it's a lovely risk-on morning.
You don't know what to do with the green screen,
I don't know what to do with this, with these S&P 500 futures soaring upwards. So this risk-on environment tends to weaken the yen a bit. So I wouldn't put too much into it in terms of Kuroda and the trade numbers.